A very warm welcome to the students of class 8. So we are going to start off with a new chapter from the Impressions textbook. Alright, your literature reader. And the chapter today that we are going to start off with is Goodbye Mr. Chips, written by James Hilton. Now before we get on to reading and knowing more about the chapter, let us put our focus on who the author is. Now in the footnote that can be found at the end of the chapter in your books. Okay, so this chapter can be found on page number 138 of Impressions. Alright, and on page 144 you can get the footnote regarding the author, James Hilton. So basically James Hilton was an English novelist. Okay. Other than that, we also get to know him as a journalist. During his career, he wrote in the English newspaper Manchester Garden, and also he started reviewing works of other personalities in the Daily Telegraph. Apart from that, regarding being an English novelist, he's known for novels, obviously, for Goodbye Mr. Chips, one of the most notable works, and other than that, there's another one which is Lost Horizon and Random Harvest. Now several of his books were international bestsellers and inspired film adaptations. So Goodbye Mr. Chips, the novel, it has at least 2 adaptations. There has been made 2 film adaptations of this novel. Okay, and it was written only in 4 days and it was immediately successful. It had a lot of success, and it in a few moments, it was just a matter of time till it became a bestseller. Now the chapter that you have, it is abridged from Goodbye Mr. Chips. You cannot have the entire novella. It's a novella. It's a short novel. Okay, a short novel is known as a novella. So okay, so you cannot have the entire thing over here as your text. So therefore only a part of it has been, a portion of it has been abridged, and you get it in your syllabus. Okay, so not only that, there are more things that I can talk about James Hilton. Firstly, his dates were 1900 to 1954. Yes, sadly, he passed away at a very tender age of I won't call it tender, but a very young age, at 54 years of age. Okay, and we can talk more about his schooling, his school life. He was educated first at Leigh School, so which is also thought to be a source of inspiration for Goodbye Mr. Chips. Okay, and after that he was educated at Christ's College, which is also in Cambridge. Both Leigh School and Christ College, both were at Cambridge. Okay, other than that, he was the son of John Hilton, who was a very eminent personality in those days. He was the headmaster of one of the schools, not Leigh School, a school where James Hilton had been educated before. He was the headmaster out there. So other than that, this is what we can call about, what we can understand about James Hilton, the English novelist. Okay, now coming to the chapter Goodbye Mr. Chips. Now this story, the character Mr. Chips is definitely the central character of his novella by the same name, Goodbye Mr. Chips. Now it is an episodic novel. Okay, episodic means the chapters that occur in the novella are in the form of episodes. Okay, I think I may have discussed a kind of this kind of genre with y'all maybe in other classes, but so that is what it is, an episodic novel. Okay, and it centers around Mr. Chipping. So Chips over here, the proper name for the character is Mr. Chipping. Okay, and very endearingly or lovingly he's been called Mr. Chips, okay, by the student. Now this is also an inspiration. Now the entire setting of Goodbye Mr. Chips that you have, the text, it takes place in Brookfields. All right, so yes, Brookfield. Now this is a direct inspiration. It has been what the analysts and James Hilton, he later on accepted the fact that Brookfield was based on Leigh School itself, alright, where James Hilton had been a pupil, and the character Mr. Chipping is also scarcely, or we can say loosely, based on one of his teachers. Okay, I'll give you his name. His name was W.H. Balgarni. So his characteristics, his traits, it was quite similar to the ones described about Mr. Chips. Okay, so and not only that, the character Mr. Chips, he had some traits that were also similar to that of James Hilton's father, John Hilton, who was the headmaster. Okay, so that is why Mr. Chips, or Mr. Chipping, and as the students called him lovingly Chips, it was quite an amalgamation or a mixture of these two characters whom James Hilton regarded, okay, or thought to be, he respected them. Therefore, this character has been born out of those two characters. Now, talking about Mr. Chips, what we can say is Mr. Chips is known to be the ideal teacher. Okay, so we'll just Mr. Chips, we'll just write about it. The ideal teacher, or as he was called out there. Now, the entire novella, Goodbye Mr. Chips, is just about the life of a school teacher who is nobody extraordinary, but with his love and devotion towards his student, he somewhat acquires a very legendary fact about him. He acquires to be, or he becomes a legendary character to them, or legend. He becomes a legend to them. All right, and he is an institution in himself. The later critics, they also term Mr. Chips to be somewhat of an anachronist. Okay, who is an anachronist? Somebody who believes in tradition, okay, convention, or the ancient beliefs and everything else, who has a belief or in the old values, in the old system of values, and who is not so much open to radical changes. Okay, and therefore that is the reason why we call him that he's an institution in himself. Okay, upholding all the Victorian values that he had once seen in his life. Okay, and through his novella, this is one thing about Mr. Chips, okay, that he was somewhat of a conventional person, a traditional person. Maybe you would also call him old school. But James Hilton, also through this novella, he wants to convey to his readers, he wants to make them understand the kind of role played by a teacher in a student's life. And this would be a tribute to his idol, to his mentor, okay, the teachers, or the ones who he had been inspired from. So that is what he wanted to describe about in his novella Goodbye Mr. Chips. Now this novel, as we all can understand, it definitely deals with the crucial role that a teacher plays in a student's life. Okay, so this can be taken as a theme. Also, another theme that is underlying throughout the text and also in the novel is the nature of change. If change is the real constant, if that is what stays, if that is what is permanent in our life, if nothing else occurs, change will. Alright, so this is what is the theme of the text that also is there. Okay, and not only that, it also talks about the bond shared by the students and the teachers. So I'll just take a moment and write down the themes on the board. You can just check it out. Okay, so the nature of change is one of the themes. How a person adapts to it or doesn't adapt to it. Okay, and the role of a teacher and the bond shared by the students and teachers. I'll come to the points about Mr. Chips later on, what sums him up as an ideal teacher. But before that, I would like to discuss a few points about what an ideal teacher is, or who can an ideal teacher be. What are the qualities that we definitely can see on him? And after that, I'm going to talk something about the bond shared by the students and the teachers. Now, an ideal teacher that we all can understand is supposed to be someone who is devoted to the growth of the students, devoted to building up the students, the career of the students. Okay, so he definitely has to be somebody who is devoted or committed, as you can say. And above all, definitely he's devoted, and above all, he has to be, he or she, whoever, a good human being. Okay, if the person is not good, even though how nicely the person teaches or how effectively the person teaches, it is not going to reflect. If he has to be, even in case of any of the professions, if he has to be a good teacher, he has to be a good human being. Okay, and he has to bring about constructivity. He's constructive. A teacher, an ideal teacher should be constructive. Means whenever the ideal teacher has to correct somebody, it has to be in a constructive manner in order to bring that person up, not demean them. Okay, and the teacher should always encourage. Okay, encourage the child to gain knowledge at every juncture, at every cost. All right. And this is what makes the teacher as important as parents. An ideal teacher, if you luckily have one, definitely you will consider the teacher to be as important as your parents. You will regard every value taught by them, every word that they speak about your life, about your career, you will definitely go or abide by that. Okay, and that kind of a teacher is an asset to the nation, because they bring up children and they guide them to the right path, and which is pretty much a benefit for the nation. Okay, an ideal teacher is definitely, another point that I will say, is an effective guide. Okay, effective guide and leader. All right, and not only that, and the last but not the least, is dutiful. Okay, never shirks away from work or duty. You would see even your teachers, even if their lives are at risk, or their families at risk, or they just go beyond and do things for you, even if it is at the late at night, even if it is at late at night. Whenever you text them, it might be a little late, but then also they make it a point to reply to you, or they are there at the end of the day with you. They are like the problem solvers that you have. You can come to them for each and everything. All right, so an ideal teacher is definitely approachable. Okay, so these are the points you should remember while you study about Mr. Chips. Okay, and what kind of a teacher he was. We'll get to understand that in a bit. I'm going to talk about the teacher-student relationship after we delve deeper into the text. Okay, so now this novella is not only about the life of Mr. Chips as a school teacher. It's also about how his dear students bid him farewell. So many a times in our lives it also can come, a time also can come where we would find ourselves at a point where our mentor or our idol or a teacher is lost, okay, or goes away, or we have to bid farewell to them, bid adieu to them. How do we take that? How do we react to that in our lives? That is a question that this text upholds, alright, or it helps you to ponder upon. We'll get on with the reading. We'll start with the reading. In the middle of the 19th century, there was a prestigious academic institution known as Brookfield. So definitely we are in the Victorian times. When Mr. Chipps joined as Latin teacher, there were 500 unprincipled ruffians to whom the baiting of new masters was a fine art, an exciting sport, and something of a tradition. Decent little boys individually, but as a mob, just pitiless and implacable. So this was the time when the Latin teacher, when Mr. Chipps joined as a Latin instructor or a teacher of the Latin language, okay, and there were 500 unprincipled ruffians meaning naughty little boys, okay, ruffians, okay, very roguish, brutish, who don't know what, they're not very ill-mannered, that's what we can call, okay, so naughty boys, definitely undisciplined, they don't know what discipline is, and to whom, and what is so important to them, the baiting of new masters. Baiting meaning they used to wait for the new masters to come, as if a fish who would be caught in a trap, okay. In other terms we might call it ragging, okay. So to whom the ragging of the new masters was a fine art, alright. They put a lot of thought into it, they put a lot of skill into ragging the new teachers, ragging the new masters, okay. An exciting sport, obviously it was very adventurous to them. See, in those times, I'm not talking about the contemporary, this time that we have, it's everything is a bit changed, you know, everything is open, but in those days, regarding your teacher as somebody of an authority in your life was very important. So if you are ragging or if you are trying to ridicule your teacher at that point of time, so it would definitely not be taken as something, you know, not normal, okay, very unusual and very defiant, okay. So that is why they got very thrilled with all these. Even nowadays it's a very thrilling, it's very adventurous to, you know, rag your teacher or try to overpower or dominate your teacher's discussion during whenever she's taking one. And something of a tradition, and something that used to be done from generations and generations, from the other batch, new batch, then the seniors, the juniors, they used to do it, okay. But you know what, these boys, these little ruffians as we call them, they were not very, they were not evil, but they were decent children, but individually only. If you talk to them, talk to each of them, okay, separately, they were good children. But as a mob, I mean, whenever they came together, so they were pitiless, mercilessly they used to ridicule or laugh at you, and implacable, okay, and which this actually sums up their character. So implacable, unable to please. It was very difficult to please these children. Alright, so the sudden hush as Chipps took his place at the desk on the dais. They used to have a dais. We don't have it in our school, we know that, but in the ancient classrooms or the old kind of traditional classrooms, you might, in a modern classroom doesn't have a dais, but in those times they used to have this. Okay, you know, it was an extended platform that came up, okay. So, and a desk used to be there. And the scowl or the frown, scowl meaning frown, he assumed to cover his nervousness, were indicative of an imminent explosion. So he had this frown on his face to cover the nervousness that he had inside. Obviously, because he's in a new place and he's teaching them for the first time. So those very students, and it was very indicative. People knew, the students knew, that he also knew that something is going to happen, because he had this look about him. Now, when I had come first into this school and taught you all as a class, even I had that sort of nervousness, and I really kept that in me, you know, covered very well with a very stern kind of an expression, a very, you know, a expression that did not change, or that was my first thing. But then I got warmed up to the students, and they also got warmed up to me, and everything was in a very good manner, you know. So this was what Mr. Chips was all about. Suddenly someone dropped a desk lid. Now this was considered to be really defiant and very disrespectful. So therefore, that sudden sound, quickly he must take everyone by surprise and establish his authority. Now what was his job to do? He has to, if somebody has done that kind of a behavior, has shown that kind of a behavior, now the teacher out there, he must do something. What would we have done? Who was that? We would have said just like that, or I would have said just like that. Come up, who has done it? Please name him. So not like that, but he knew. He was very observant, Mr. Chips. He said, you there in the 5th row, you with the red hair, what's your name? Collie, sir. Very well, Collie. You have 100 lines to write. So the punishment was given then and there, and the authority was established. Alright, so he showed that he was not somebody you would be messed up with. Thereafter, there was no trouble, and the student understood that all the students, that this person, he will not be easily warmed up to. You cannot easily be endeared to him or warm up to him, because if you go south, or if you think of going down south with him, if things go down with him, it will be a problem for you. Years later, when Collie was an alderman meaning chief magistrate of the city of London and a baronet, this was that red-haired boy Collie, what he became when he grew up, and various other things, he sent his son, also red-haired, to Brookfield. And one fine day Chips told him, Collie, your father was the first boy I ever punished when I came here 25 years ago. He deserved it then, and you deserve it now. So throughout the story, you will definitely find, not only story, the text, you will find that there are these excerpts of a good sense of humor about Mr. Chips. Now, an ideal teacher, he doesn't always have a very stern expression or a serious look in his face. He is successful as a teacher when he can definitely make his lessons exciting and I won't say funny, but humorous with the students. In that way, the students, it has an impact on them. When they feel that they are in a light-hearted scenario, they learn well, okay, they can get involved into it. So one needs to be really have a good sense of humor with the students. It's not like just be a jester and laugh about always, but there has to be some kind of wisdom also in it. And over here we find the first example of sense of humor that Mr. Chipping or Mr. Chips had exhibited, and that was with Collie. Okay, so when Collie grew up to be a very great personality, he didn't forget Brookfield. Neither did he feel that this place, Mr. Chips had reprimanded me, and so he did not have any hard feelings about it. He sent his son as well, because he thought that rebuke, the reprimanding that he got at that point of time because of his disrespect shown to the teacher, it was important. It needed to be corrected, and that is why his son also was there. and he also had the same traits of his father, and therefore Mr. Chipping also cracked a joke in his class with him. Okay, so this we can understand that Mr. Chipping had a great sense of humor. Okay, let us proceed. How the class laughed and how Sir Richard laughed when his son wrote home, Richard Colley, okay, Colley Senior, when his son wrote home the story in the next Sunday's letter. So every Sunday they used to write a letter, and Mr. Richard also, he went back to his childhood days and he also reminisced about the reprimanding that he had got from Mr. Chips. Chips was ingeniously funny. Ingeniously meaning, you have the list of words over here. He was funny in a very clever and creative manner. You could not say that he was just a clown out there. His humor or his jokes were very clownish. It tickled you, but it had a sense. They were witty. Okay, his reprimands were gentle, and he did not bring about a personal grudge whenever he reprimanded the child. He rebuked the child, he punished the child, but in a very gentle manner, so as the child would learn. He would not feel demeaned. He would not demean the child for his quality or anything else, but he made sure that he learned something. And there was a touch of humor in the way he presented things that quite often had the errant student laughing along with the rest of the class. Errant, a troublesome student, or a student who would not be, who always had errors in him, alright, who didn't want to take part in any of these school activities or just was a passive listener in the class. So even the manner in which he joked, it also made that kind of a student take part in the class, be involved in the class, belong to the class. Okay, so this is the magic of an ideal teacher. He makes each and every student involved in the lesson, stay in the class and not wander off to somewhere else. Okay, let's proceed. And again, many years later after that, there was an even better joke. So a good joke was, Colley was told that he had 100 lines to write, and then Colley Jr. came along, the son of Richard Colley. Then people also cracked a joke with it, and there was even a better joke than that. What could be a better joke? And then the second Colley had sent his son, who was another Colley, to Brookfield again. For another Colley had just arrived. So Mr. Chips had taught 3 generations of Colley. And Mr. Chips said, punctuating his remarks with a little that had then become a habit with him. Now, obviously, he has taught 3 generations of of that family, of the Colley family. And definitely we can understand that he has developed, he's arrived at his old age. And due to his old age, there has been some speech development. Okay, so whenever he used to talk, first it might have been very smooth, but then after his old age had developed, there had been such interjections in his speech, like whenever he spoke, in between he added these all these kind of expressions, okay, that made his speech a bit, it halted his speech for a bit, but then also he retained his sense of humor, and that's what he said. Colley, you are a splendid example of inherited traditions. I remember your grandfather, he could never grasp the elements of grammar, and your father too. I remember him, he used to sit at that far desk by the wall. He wasn't much better either, but I do believe, my dear Colley, that you are the biggest fool of the lot. So all these 3, definitely they lack some sort of sense in them, but you, dear, you have inherited their traits, and you have been the possessor of and you possess the trait in such a manner that you can be termed as the biggest fool in the family, or you don't understand even a single bit whatever your father or your grandfather would have understood. Okay, so that is what, this was definitely not demeaning or not derogating, but the rebuke of a teacher, the manner in which Mr. Chips said these words, the tone of his words, it did not make the student, make the pupil feel that I am being demeaned by the teacher, that I am being called a fool. So they took it in a very joking manner, in a very, not jester. They took it as a sense, in a very funny way, the rebuke. And that was Mr. Chips, okay, with all his witty remarks. And that's what made him very dear to his students. Okay, so that is why they used to call him Mr. Chips, endearingly Mr. Chips and not Mr. Chipping. Okay, so this was Mr. Chippings for you, the first instance of his stay of his tenure at Brookfield, and the rest of the chapter will be explained to you in the online classes. Alright, and there we can talk more about what kind of a teacher was he, about the teacher-student relationship, and you can definitely watch the video and put forward or come across with your doubts and whatever you want to share on the topic of what an ideal teacher should be. So we will meet next in the online classes, and from there we are going to go on with the chapter. Thank you.